Hello there and welcome to my guide for painting Miles Morales and Carnage for Marvel Zombies. As you can see, the first thing I've done is sprayed Miles black and Carnage white with some sprays from Colourforge. And as Miles is in an awkward pose, the sprays won't get him entirely, so I'm going to use some Abaddon black just to tidy things up. And this will be followed by a dry brush of all the black areas with some Corvus black. And I like my blacks to be very subtle, so the second highlight will be some Eshin Grey. Moving over to Carnage, I'm going to paint his entire body with Mephiston red. And I'll use that same red to paint the red areas on Miles as well. Now Carnage has elements of black in his body, so I'm going to use some Nuln Oil to put that in place instead of painstakingly sitting there and painting it with a brush. And while that dries, I'll give the red on Miles a wash with some Carroburg Crimson. After the Nuln Oil is dried on Carnage, I'm going to give him a second wash, but this time with some Carroburg Crimson, just to deepen that red a little bit further. I'm then going to relayer the Mephiston red on Miles, avoiding all of the recesses. This will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Mephiston red and Evil Sunn Scarlet for the first highlights. Then Evil Sunn Scarlet by itself. And then finally a 50-50 mix of Evil Sunn Scarlet and Wild Rider red. Once the wash has dried on Carnage, I'm going to dry brush some Mephiston red just to brighten him up a little bit. Followed by a second dry brush of a 50-50 mix of Mephiston red and Evil Sunn Scarlet. And then Evil Sunn Scarlet just by itself. I want to highlight his face a little bit more, so I'll do a 50-50 mix of Evil Sunn Scarlet and Wild Rider red. I'm then going to use Abaddon black to paint the inside of his mouth and the outline around his eyes. On his base, he's got a sign for Ravencroft, and I'm going to paint the inside of that with some Warpstone Glow. I'll also do the same with the sign that's on Miles's base. Both signs will then get washed with some Belltown green. On Miles's base, he also has a taxi sign, so we're going to paint that with Aetherland Sunset, which will get washed with some Cassandora yellow. Miles also has a fire extinguisher on his base, but I'm going to paint that with Corn red, so the red stands out from the red on Spider-Man. And I'll give it a wash with some Carroburg Crimson. Next, I'm going to use some Grey Sear to highlight the writing on the sign, as well as Spider-Man's heels, the rest of the Ravencroft sign, and Carnage's eyes and teeth. All of these areas will then get highlighted with matte white. Then I'll relayer the Aetherland Sunset just to brighten up the sign a little bit more, and highlight it with a 50-50 mix of Aetherland Sunset and Dawn Yellow. I'll then use Abaddon black for the writing on the sign. For the highlight on the Hydran, I'll do a 50-50 mix of Corn red and Wazdacker red, followed by a little bit of Wazdacker red just by itself. I'll then paint the rest of the signpost and the little metallic chains from the hydrant with Iron Hand Steel. And these areas will get washed with some Nuln Oil. All of the concrete will then get painted with Dawnstone, and a bit of metal sticking out next to the hydrant will get painted with some Iron Warriors, before dry brushing all of that concrete with some Grey Sear. I'm going to paint the rims of the bases black, and then finally wash the bases with some watered down Agrax Earthshade. And once that's dry, that's those guys done. I'm not a big fan of these models, but they are okay-ish and they're quite easy to get out of the way and paint. They're also incredibly fast to paint as well, mostly because there are only about 3 colours on them, so they only took around about 2.5 hours to complete for the pair. If you followed this guide and you enjoyed it and it really helped you, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. We've got plenty more Marvel Zombie stuff to do. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.